Hi everyone. Today I wanted to show you the results of my cuttings this year. It's early November and I started most of these cuttings in early June through mid-July. And the results were pretty good. So I did a video earlier that I'll link below in the description where I planted some cuttings of Acer palmatum Seiryu, which is a green upright lace leaf Japanese maple. Now those cuttings were done in late August, and I was thinking at the time that it was going to be a little late to do cuttings because the summer was winding down and coming to an end. But as it turns out, those cuttings have now rooted, and I'll show you some photos. I think you'll be interested in seeing how some of the other cuttings turned out. So, well, good news. It's now early November, and I was cleaning out the dropped leaves from the plastic bins and found that the Seiryu cuttings, at least one of them, has rooted, as you can see. So that was very exciting. I started these cuttings at the end of August, and now it's the beginning of November. So that's about 11 weeks, and they were probably already rooting well before 11 weeks. So it just goes to show that you can do cuttings really through the whole growing season and have a decent chance of them taking root. So that's something I learned this season, and it really inspired me to, hey, just go ahead and take cuttings all year. Anytime I'm doing pruning through the summer to late summer, and go ahead and make cuttings out of them, stick them in the bin and see how they do. Keep your fingers crossed and you've got a good chance of them rooting. Of all the varieties of Japanese maple cultivars that I did this year, there are ones I know for sure that have rooted based on seeing roots coming out of the bottom of the pots, and those include Sharp's Pygmy, Deshojo, and Looking Glass Falls. Also Noel or Noel. If you remember, I potted up the Seiryu cuttings in the pot that had dead Noel cuttings, but the other pot of Noel cuttings actually did root. And here's why I think that is. So Noel is a variegated Japanese maple with pink, white, and green leaves. So when you take cuttings, you need to take sections with leaves that are as much green as possible. Otherwise, it's hard for the cutting to grow roots. I imagine this applies to all variegated varieties as well. So the pot where the Noel cuttings died, I recall those were all pink-leaved cuttings, and I think that was what was going on there. So it doesn't mean that the other varieties won't root, even if you don't see roots coming out of the bottom of the pots now. Since I'm not touching any of the cuttings for a while, there's really no rush to check on them. They have plenty of time to develop roots. They can sit in this plastic bin until they either root or they die, and I'll probably figure that out sometime next year. So I wanted to take some time to answer your questions about how I do my Japanese maple propagation. The first question is, do I drill any holes at the bottom of the bin for drainage or on the lid for aeration? The answer to that is no. I don't drill any holes. I just use the bins as I buy them from the store. And there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, I want to keep a nice humid environment so the leaves don't dry out. And I can do that by keeping the bins closed this way. And because I'm not losing any moisture out of the bin, I don't have to add any moisture, so I don't have to water the plants, I don't have to spray them. And that keeps everything from drying out without me having to do any extra work. Which of course, as you probably know by now, I'm a pretty lazy person, and the least amount of work is what I'm always thinking about. Another nice thing about not having any drainage holes or air holes is that it keeps any kind of pests from getting into your bin. So things like insects or snails or slugs. That's an advantage of not having any extra holes in there. Another question is, what kind of bins do you use for the cuttings? Well, I like the deepest bins possible to give room for the taller cuttings, but I really go for whatever's on sale. So here are some examples. I really like these Daiso bins. Another question is, how do you keep mold and fungus from growing inside of the bin if you don't have any drainage or air holes? Well, that's a good question. I just remove any dead leaves or stems occasionally whenever I peek into the bins. So the perlite that I use is an inorganic material, and the sifted pine bark doesn't seem to encourage any kind of fungus or mold growth. So I never seem to have any problems with any kind of mold or fungus growing in the bins. Now, I would caution you not to use any potting material that has a lot of organic material like compost in it. I tried that once with potting soil with Miracle Grow, and that just turned into a big fuzzy mess. So as long as you avoid a lot of organic material, you won't have any problems. So it's fall now, and just like the Japanese maples in your yard and in your garden, the leaves are changing color and starting to drop. And the same way in these cutting bins, the leaves are beginning to yellow and drop off. So I need to go in there and clean up the bins by removing the fallen leaves and any dead stems. So I remove the leaves by hand, anything that's loose and I can pull off easily. And for those that are still attached to the stems, I'll just go ahead and cut off the leaves with my pruning scissors. And also if I find any stems that have died, I'll take them out now, just so I don't leave any dead material in there that could be medium for any fungus or mold to grow over the winter. Now some of the leaves haven't quite turned yellow or fallen off yet, and as long as they seem to still have some chlorophyll in them, I'll leave them on there until they do fall off. So I'll come back in there and remove the rest of these leaves before the winter. So that's what I have for you on this video. I hope you found it to be useful and interesting. You know, it's really fun to do cuttings. I think it's really low effort and it's fun to see how things turn out. You just take your cuttings, prep them, throw them in the bins, stick them away for the summer, and then pull them out in the fall and see how they're doing. It's really a win-win situation for anybody interested in propagating Japanese maples. Well, have a good week and we'll see you next time. Bye.